Lake Assal. The saltiest stretch of water on the globe is in an area at risk of splitting, dividing Africa in two. At one time, ancient Romanians felt so fed up with the abundance of the African continent, that when they heard of a wonder discovered by a traveler, they replied, "Hey, in Africa you always find something new." The truth is, of course, that the Romanians had not tasted but very little of what the Black Continent had to offer. Even today, none of those who know it would dare to say that its splendors have all been discovered. And Assal Lake perfectly demonstrates this. Although visited by Westerners only starting with the 1920s, explored and fully understood only many years later, the lake has already established new milestones of human knowledge. It is known today that Assal is the point on Earth at the lowest altitude, 155 meters below sea level, and the summer temperature of 57 degrees Celsius gives it the title of one of the hottest. These two factors contribute to setting another record. Lake Assal is also the saltiest stretch of water on Earth, 10 times saltier than the ocean and much saltier than the Dead Sea. Statistics aside, Assal is one of the most inhospitable areas on the planet. Surrounded by black hills of dry lava, scorched by the sun, the vegetation around it is almost completely absent, except for a few thorns. Not a bird sings, nothing, not even a lizard moves on the shore. It is a landscape of death. A color palette. Its beauty is as if unearthly. In its immediate vicinity there are bright white salt beds, and the low and slimy water glistens in an azure blue, with shades of turquoise. Delicate forms of salt carved on the surface of the water, colored by various minerals in the most varied colors, from pale green to purple and reddish brown. The shore is bordered by bizarre sculptures, grotesque shapes, like giant cabbages, from the salt deposited by the water. The oddities of Lake Assal can be explained by its position. Located in Djibouti, a small village in the Gulf of Aden, at the mouth of the Red Sea, the lake is in one of the corners of the Afar Triangle, one of the most chaotic areas on Earth, from a geological point of view. Three faults of the tectonic plates plus meet here: the Great East African Rift, the Red Sea, and the Gulf of Aden, the area being prone to earthquakes. Volcanic eruptions inside the triangle are also the current currency, for millions of years molten rock rising to the surface as the puzzle pieces of the Earth's surface move. Such phenomena usually take place in the oceans, as in the Atlantic, for example, on the bottom of which the soil is continuously renewed along the fault that crosses it. The Afar Triangle would also be covered by water, if the barrier of the Danakil Mountains did not stop the advance of the Red Sea. In this way, the area offers the special spectacle of the type of Earth's crust usually formed at the bottom of the oceans. The symbol of manhood. The most valuable object of an Afar man is the curved dagger, which is given to him in adolescence and signifies manhood. The dagger is one of the possessions of the salt gatherers. The powder from Lake Assal is packed in bags sewn with palm fibers. However, despite the mountain barrier, most of the water in Lake Assal comes from the sea, infiltrating through the rock and collecting on the deep bottom of the lake, adding to this the water that flows down the slopes of the hills during short winter rains. The salt from the seawater and the minerals washed from the coasts of the hills are deposited on top of those existing there for thousands of years. But the region was not as arid as it is now. 10,000 years ago the climate was much wetter, and the surface of the lake was 80 meters above its current level, as shown by the traces of the shells of freshwater mollusks, visible on the slopes of the hills in the area. The former bottom of the lake has today become a field of blinding white, where the only sign of life is brought by a member of an Afar tribe, who came with his camels to collect salt, as his ancestors once did, and sell it in Ethiopia. Jewels of the lake. Most of the water in Lake Assal comes from the Red Sea. The sun evaporates it, leaving behind delicate outlines of salt.